Bubbles, bubbles of time fly by.
Good morning. Morning, Bree.
Bubbles, bubbles of time fly by.
Good morning.
99 degrees of cleanness on the rule, you see.
Coming up, we're going to play this interview with the acting governor, Josh Tenorio. Our Isaiah Uggan was able to catch him on just a bunch of different issues, so we'll play that out for you guys. He commented on everything from the Admiral's revelation about the property up at Eagles Field to the COVID-19 surge and a message to public school parents. 7:16 is Friday, January 28th. Let's head into the KUAM News Link Zoom room, where we have the president of the Guamatown Restaurant Association, Mary Rhodes. Good morning, Mary.
Papa Day, good morning.
Happy Friday.
Hello. Happy Friday.
Thanks for joining us. Thanks for joining us so early. I appreciate it.
Oh, sure. No problem. How are you?
We're doing okay. How about you?
Okay. Yesterday actually was the Guam International Airport Authority's golf tournament for Ed Munya. So that was something out of the ordinary, right, in these times and circumstances. But I know that it was really for a good cause, and the Employee Association did a really good job, and the Airport Authority, it was a tremendous support yesterday.
Well, Mary, we asked you on because we're hearing about a lot of these Omicron-related closures, right? I know that I did a shoot over at Ruby Tuesday, and they had to close for like almost a week. And it wasn't just because they had positives. I think it was mostly because that whole close contact deal. So you're seeing this, it's happening all over, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Between close contact and as well as Omicron and even the regular flu, right? So there's been a huge impact. And I know that a lot of people are making that decision to close and to do either takeout only or just do a temporary closure for now until staffing levels are back to, something that they can sustain their operations with. But also it's not just staffing. There are a lot of issues even with supply shortage at this time. And so, companies, especially restaurants, food service industry, they've been dealing with food shortage for a while, especially in specific items. So there were several reasons for businesses to have to shut down. And I know that one of the questions was really, especially with this particular variant and how transmissible it is whether or not there should be more restrictions. But in essence, it's kind of being self-imposed, not just by the businesses themselves, but just in the fact that people are not going out dining. And so we don't see that traffic at all. So whether or not it means a business should remain open during this period. So it's really about being responsible as well as ensuring that your employees and your guests are remaining safe, especially during this time. But the harsh reality is that maybe there isn't enough traffic or a customer base to even maintain operations at this point.
Mary, I know that we like to eat around here. One of our favorite hobbies. But then just the last couple places that we picked up food from, just anecdotally, last night when I got dinner, the restaurant was totally empty. Drive-through was empty. They're doing a lot of takeout for lunch, right? But the place we got lunch at yesterday, again, they had one customer sitting in there, and they had been doing really good on takeout for, I guess, like maybe the first couple weeks of the surge. But the guy was telling me at BJ Barbecue, great place, that they're really seeing a downturn in business.
Yeah, I think that, especially dining takeout for the last 2 years, we've seen an increase in that type of business and services. But I think that a lot of people, it's kind of become extremely taxing on individuals in more ways than one. And also, with PUA money running out, federal dollars not being recirculated back into the economy, people don't have that disposable income as much as they used to. So I would like to, probably assume also that things are starting to get really tight out there with the community, and understandably so, especially for those who currently aren't working. And so those dollars, when they're recirculating back into the economy, there's a reason for that, right? You're really reinvesting back into the people. You're giving people options in how they're going to provide for their families, but also sustain businesses, especially as tourism is not taking place right now. And so when you don't circulate those federal dollars, it does have an economic impact to the businesses, those who pay taxes, as well as those who can afford to do things like eat out, right, rather than cook at home. And so there's really a multiplier effect when those dollars are not being spent out in the community. So I would like to say that it's for a couple of reasons, right? People are really just not spending that kind of money anymore, whereas you would see that the last 2 years.
What are you hearing about the LEAP program? A lot of your members taking advantage of this program, and I know this was created before this current surge we're experiencing, and I'm just kind of wondering, is this going to be enough? Are we going to need, another program?
Yeah, I think it's really important to really have that discussion already. The LEAP program, when I know that Mel and the Gita board, they were running through the different options. Initially, it was estimated to put a cap at 500,000 initially, and they brought that down to 300,000 because they looked at previous applicants who would probably qualify, and they were expecting about 600. And the applicants, I just looked at it the other day, and it's nearing 1,200. And I would think by March on the deadline, you're going to really see, 12 to 1,500 companies apply. And so it's going to be double, if not 2.5 times the amount they were expecting. And so I think it needs to be addressed. One of the examples I've been giving out to our members is, everybody should apply for it. Those who believe they are eligible for those dollars. Even though it's only $50 million, you still need to kind of exercise, show the need, right, out in the community within private sector that if the average award of 50,000, let's say, not even the full max of 300,000, but if the average small business needs or should be awarded 50,000. If you just took 50,000 times even 1,200 applicants where it's at now, that's an additional, I believe, $30 million that we need. But if the average of 100,000, let's say, which is still 1/3 of the max award, then you're going to need another 70 million on top of the 50 million that was provided. So I think it's really twofold. One is, everybody should apply who believes they're eligible, because you need to show it's needs-based, right? And it's also demand-based. So if that many businesses need the support within the community, whether it's 1,200, 1,500 number of companies, majority of them small businesses, we need to demonstrate that. And then number two, we can only ask for more funding with the federal dollars that the government currently has. We can only demonstrate that if we have the numbers to support it. And so we really need the businesses to apply to demonstrate that to Gita and to, the government, both legislative and executive branches, that private sector is hurting. And, these numbers and this LEAP grant was based on the previous year, not current period. Yeah. And if Omicron continues to make the impact it has been making so far this year, I think that we have the justifications to ask for more federal dollars to be spent within the private sector, because you really need the small businesses up to the large businesses to keep that circular economy going within private sector. Again, they're the businesses that pay taxes. They're the ones who largely employ individuals outside of the government. And we really need to assist these businesses as these restrictions continue to be imposed. But at the same time, we're limiting their total revenues by not having tourism going, by not recirculating federal dollars into the economy. So you do need to have a solution for private sector.
Mary, we actually had a comment. Due to the current situation, how soon would Mary request for more assistance from the governor and or the legislature? Because, I mean, it sounds like that's the road we're heading down.
Yeah, I think that would be soon, a conversation really soon, because again, the deadline, you have to allow this process to take place similar to, GITA. At the time we were considering LEAP, where it was 25 million from the legislature and 25 million from the governor for a total of 50 million. Their small business grant was still in effect. And so they still had 12 million that they had not spent at that point. And so they did run simultaneous programs. The PUA grant, the PAG grant through GITA's small business program, they needed to exhaust those funds before they can really consider another program, but they did consider LEAP at that time. So I think right now we already can demonstrate that already it's at double the expected amount of people to apply. The big question is whether or not we've exhausted the funds, because not everybody will be eligible for 300,000 max. And so that's a big question to GITA is what is the average award right now? And out of the close to 1,200 applicants, how much money are we going to spend out of the 50 million? And then we can go from there. So I think we have to see the applicants first, and it is on a first come, first served basis. And so then we can make those justifications.
Mary, we're talking a lot about how the business community is suffering because of this surge, and then, the residual, obviously, the ongoing, just everything with the pandemic. But I know if the businesses are having that hard of a time, man, the people must be really hurting.
Yeah, that's why I said, with federal dollars not being circulated back with the individuals, with families or individuals not working, it has made such a huge impact to the economy, because it's people aren't spending as they did back in 2020 and 2021. And so it does have that multiplier domino effect where you'll start to see it in the businesses. And like you said, even by dining out, you don't see the restaurants full anymore. And so I'm really not surprised that a lot of these service establishments have decided to temporarily close down, not just because of the variant and close contact, but also because the traffic isn't there, whether it's because people are just staying home because the variant is more transmissible, or they've been personally impacted by it. But I just think that spending dollars are starting to get, more limited.
You talked about tourism, right? We had the GVB tourism president, Czar, what is he, CEO, former Governor Carl Gutierrez. Man, there wasn't really a lot of specifics the last few times we've had him on. There's a lot of generalities, right? So I don't know, where are we with tourism other than the governor had said, I think it was during was that an airport ribbon cutting? Yeah. She said
the new wing, yep.
What did she say? That tourists are itching to come to Guam.
Yeah, well, all the key source markets, right? Whether it's Taiwan, Korea, Japan, there's obviously interest from those markets. But each of those markets have been dealing with, a lot of, from Delta to Omicron, they've dealt with their own closures and lockdowns. But Korea, for example, and even Taiwan, right? They were traveling here. We still have a couple of tourists traveling here, actually. I know just the other day, I believe it was 2 days ago, 48 tourists came to Guam. So we still have tourism going in a very, very small sense, but not certainly to fill a plane or to really feel that impact or see the impact tourism has in our community like we would normally see. But last year, we started seeing, good numbers coming in from Taiwan and Korea. And once they changed because of the Delta variant, and Omicron's only going to extend those deadlines. We've already seen Japan and Korea extend their deadlines as far as securing air scheduling and flight schedules to guarantee flights here. People aren't going to be traveling if planes aren't scheduled to come to Guam. And so the further we go out with this variant and the impact it has in not just in our own community, but international communities, then you're really talking not really starting until May or June if things turned around today, right?
Don't say that anymore. If
no, but that's
right,
the reality.
Right, yeah, I know.
It's 3 to 4 months.
Yeah.
For people to even choose to travel. Some markets, they'll get on a plane much faster, especially like Korea travelers, the younger ones. But people aren't traveling like that anymore. They're they're choosing to travel domestically, more within their home countries. And if they're going to travel international, we have to really put that messaging out, continue to put that messaging out to stay safe. And Guam is a safe destination. And I know that you guys are doing a tremendous job sharing the WTTC Safe Travels program. And just as a friendly reminder, that renewal process is ongoing. And I believe GDB sent a press release out and only 48 companies renewed their application. And so we need more businesses to sign up for the WTTC Safe Travels program, because when we do promote Guam as a safe destination, one of the best ways to promote that is an international brand such as the World Travel Tourism Council with the stamp of safe travels, because that's what tourists are looking for before they make that decision to travel to a destination. So please sign up for businesses out there. Please sign up for WTTC Safe Travels. All of these things are steps towards that direction, although it won't trigger a quick movement, but they're all necessary in order to reopen and to communicate to the rest of the world that, Guam is within Asia, but also US, and it's a safe place to travel at this point. Really, with Omicron, everybody questions whether or not people should be traveling. And of course, everybody's going to be prudent in that decision making, and we're seeing the impact of that. The big question is, how much longer can we continue to be in this, holding pattern with tourism? We said it's going to take 2 years, right? Well, we're into year 3 and without rebuilding at this point.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, I guess, the temperature within your membership under the JHRA. We talked about how businesses are struggling, clearly, but yet we hear about pay raises and things like that in the government. So I just wanted to see what are you hearing in the private sector about that, kind of like their reaction when you hear that? Because to me, I'm just like, what? We're giving out pay raises? Granted, they with law enforcement, they deserve it. But, there are people out there who are hurting, that don't have a job, that can barely feed their families. And so to hear, we're going to give you whatever, a raise, and this.
Well, we already know,
COVID
Guam is a very challenging market to begin with, right? With the wage scale. And I think that it just makes it harder for private sector to compete, not just with the government, but also with industries that have the prevailing wage, like the Davis-Bacon Act with construction. And so all of those things have an impact to the market when you're having to compete, right, for the same individuals. So I think from a macroeconomic perspective, it's going to make Guam overall more expensive and also very difficult to keep people within the private sector. So private sector is very challenged in the fact that, one, they're having a hard time attracting employees, and 2, they're going to have a hard time keeping employees, and 3, can the market afford to continue to pay these wages, knowing that Guam's already an expensive place to live, as well as an expensive place to operate business in. So there are multiple effects that has on a business as well as on individuals when you're really looking at wage scales that automatically have large increases, right? An average increase in any industry, whether you're government or private sector, is normally 3 to 5% in a good year.
Not
and
18%.
Right. And it's so much larger right now. And how do you determine who's essential, right? Obviously, Guam Police Department, we obviously support them, healthcare workers, all of that. But how do you determine who's more essential than somebody else, right? I know teachers who are upset about it within government. I know a lot of other agencies, it's a very difficult time to justify something like that during a pandemic when everybody is essential. And then also when private sector is having a hard time, but it's not just on Guam. This is throughout the United States where a worker shortage is taking place, right? And so I think that it's going to be really hard times moving forward as we continue to see things like that, because it just makes it more challenging for everybody else. Not that it's not deserved again. Everybody wishes that we can all afford to be able to give, people those kinds of wages, but are you remaining competitive in it? Are you going to impact the rest of the community, the market, in what is considered a rate for that type of a job? Yeah. And so you can't accelerate it that fast because you're making a larger impact to the economy and to the community in that way. So it has a detrimental effect, but at the same time, positive effects for those individuals who get it.
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, I think one thing this pandemic has highlighted, Mary, is the widening gap between the government and the private sector. We lose people to GovGuam. I mean, and right. these are not like, high positions. These are like kind of like mid-level positions that pay much more than private sector. I mean, if you look at like what a digital marketer would make in the private sector versus what they make for the government, I mean, it's got to be like a $20,000-$30,000 gap. So,
well, what it translates to, right, is higher costs overall equals higher pricing. And so when you're having to pay larger wages like that, whether it's government or private sector, it's going to affect the price point. And so, the market will be deeply impacted like I said, but also it's how do we sustain ourselves? We already know, how long can that last? This money, the federal dollars we received was a one-time, or actually 3 times, right? We've received it, but it's not like it's continuous. Yeah. The rest of the dollars have to come from taxes.
And I think with these raises that Bree was talking about, I mean, it's one thing if the issue really seemed to be with GPD, that they were getting paid so much lower than everyone else. But what the governor did in a genius election year move is she gave everybody who wears a badge, regardless of, how much. Anyway, yeah, she just gave, hundreds of people as opposed to like a couple hundred people. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think the challenge, though, is GPD, and, I think that they've been passed over for wage increases over the years. Different agencies go through it, right? Whether it's fire department and they got their back pay. Different agencies have passed over, but that's a signal that we can't afford to pay everybody. So different agencies have waited, and that's what's the unfortunate truth about this is GPD has been waiting for this for a long time.
Yeah, but we didn't just.
But so have
GPD.
other people.
Yeah. Mary, thank you for your time. That was a very insightful conversation.
Good luck on LEAP Part 2.
Yeah.
And welcome back, Bree. And I haven't seen you yet, so my deepest condolences to you and your family. I haven't seen you since you've been gone. So just know I've been thinking about you, and I know how much you guys mean to the community. And it's always good to see all of you continue to stay safe. And when I hope to be back and we can talk more about whether or not there'll be more federal dollars going into private sector, hopefully at some point. Yeah. But certainly, thank you for having me.
Thank you, Mary.
Okay.
Bye. All right, let's keep it going here. 7:39. Dr. Peter Lombard. He's been crunching COVID stats right here on the link all for the whole pandemic. And, there's a little bit of a lull there where we didn't have any stats to crunch, but there is definitely no shortage of numbers to run through the Lombardinator. Good morning, Doc.